Hey guys, what's up? Ryan Camp here with Weekend Go. Today I'm going to be talking about my thoughts and impressions for episode 8 of Twin Peaks The Return, or season 3 if you will, and that's coming up right now. Hey, thanks for joining me. It's Ryan. Quick and dirty video today, not my usual setup for the Red Room recap, but I'm running a little bit behind and I really wanted to get a video out for this episode in particular because, man, was this episode absolutely amazing. I've never seen anything so brave, so unflinching, so original, and so downright weird on regular television, on network television before. And they really have outdone themselves what they were able to accomplish with Twin Peaks seasons 1 and 2. The level of weird and the surrealism they were able to incorporate on network TV back then. Now they have free reign on Showtime, and man, they have really set the bar high and planted a new flag for what I believe network television can be in the future going forward. Obviously, there's a lot of people who probably are going to stop watching the show at this point. It was just a little bit too weird for them, and that's understandable. This show isn't for everyone. That's why it's become a cult classic. That's why it was canceled so quickly. It was just too weird for a lot of people at the time. If Twin Peaks had stayed just your regular old murder mystery back in the day and not ventured out into these realms of weird supernatural possibilities, then I would like to argue that I don't think we would be talking about it right now. So it's important that this show maintains its weirdness. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and dig right into what this episode was all about. We started off normal enough. South Dakota. Mr. C, Evil Cooper, and his cohort, Ray Monroe, have just left the prison, and we get the vibe that, something bad is about to happen to Ray. We know that Cooper asked for a gun to be put in the glove compartment, so things aren't looking good for Ray. We notice that Cooper uses his magic technology again to get the tracking devices off of his car, using a big rig that's in front of them, the license plate. He throws the phone out the window and tells Ray, "You have something I want." Ray informs him that he has the numbers that Mr. C is looking for memorized perfectly in his head, but he's trying to squeeze him for a little bit of money before he ends up giving him the information. And Ray is not stupid. He knows that Mr. C is probably going to kill him. He knows that he's probably already killed his partner, Daria. They mentioned something about going to a place called the farm to hide out. They pull off on a side road to get there, and Ray says he has to take a leak. While he's out taking a leak, Mr. C gets the gun from the glove compartment, checks it. It looks like it's loaded. Gets out, and he tries to shoot Ray, but the gun just clicks. Ray says, "I tricked you," pulls out a gun of his own, and puts two or three bullets in Mr. C's chest. When he comes over to finish the job, put a bullet in Mr. C's brain, suddenly things take a very dark turn. We see the dark charcoal, soot-covered ghosts, the woodsman, a whole gaggle of them running out from the woods. They are see-through, so we get the impression that these guys are, in fact, spirits of some kind. And they start to perform some sort of ritual around Mr. C's body, patting the dirt. We see him kind of come and go and disappear a little bit also. Ray is absolutely horrified. He begins screaming in muffled tones. The music grows ominous, and at one point, they start rubbing blood all over Mr. C and then extract what looks to be a gelatinous orb from his stomach containing the spirit of Bob. Now I guess we can kind of gather that Bob is no longer in Mr. C. That's what I took from it anyway. Let me know what you think in the comments below, but it seems like going forward that Mr. C is going to be sans Bob. So what does that mean for Mr. C? Is he going to be a good guy now? I doubt it. Is he going to be a little bit less evil? Is he going to be like a mindless drone and find his way to Dougie Coop, and maybe they'll merge in some way and become the real Coop again? It's going to be interesting to see what happens. Oh, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. After a performance by the Nine Inch Nails at the Roadhouse, great performance, great introduction. Great lyrics in that song, by the way. If you want to go back and listen to it, it sounds like it's referencing Laura Palmer to me. After the performance, we see Mr. C rise from the dead, his black eyes staring off into the distance, covered in blood. And then we get an interesting phone call with Ray Monroe, This may have been before that, actually, but we get a phone call with Ray Monroe calling who he thinks is Philip Jeffries. And as we saw before, when Mr. C called Philip Jeffries, he got the impression that he wasn't actually talking to Philip Jeffries. So is Ray aware of this also, or does he still think that he's talking to the real Philip Jeffries? Who knows? But apparently there is more to Ray than meets the eye. I get the impression that he's not just some low-life thug. He seems intelligent. He seems like he knows the supernatural aspects of this story and what's going on. He says he saw something come out of Cooper, and this must be what this is all about. He knows that Cooper might not be dead, and that he's got some help from the other side, and he says that he's headed to the farm, and if Cooper comes after him, he'll get him there. So perhaps Ray is a FBI agent. Perhaps not. Maybe he's just a hired thug working for Jeffries undercover. We'll see. Now we head all the way back to White Sands, New Mexico in 1945. The camera is now in black and white. We have a beautiful shot overlooking the desert as a countdown begins, and we see the Manhattan Project, the very first launch of the atomic weapon in the middle of the desert. The camera slowly pulls in, and we get a very 2001 Space Odyssey style scene as the camera goes inside of this mushroom cloud, and we, for several minutes, go through fire and explosions and clouds, and finally it seems like we get down to the molecular level, and you get the impression that the storytellers here are saying that this atomic weapon opened a portal, opened a doorway into another world, and allowed these evil beings, these charcoal demons, whom we see milling about this convenience store, which is important to the story. If in Twin Peaks, the earlier seasons, Mike mentioned that when him and Bob were killing together, they lived above a convenience store. In Fire Walk with Me, we have a very ethereal scene as Philip Jeffries explains a meeting he witnessed between the denizens of the lodge while they met above a convenience store. Is this the convenience store that they were mentioning? Who knows? But it's definitely drawing some similarities there. And we see the charcoal demons moving in and out in a very staggered, almost stop-motion style that goes on uncomfortably too long. Then we find ourselves staring at a black space as a white humanoid creature whose head resembles the face that Agent Cooper showed to Daria on the playing card, I noticed. So that's an interesting fact to remember. But we see this humanoid creature vomiting up this vile fluid. It seems to contain eggs and plus a black gelatinous orb like we saw earlier containing the face of Bob. So apparently this is the birth of Bob, and I believe this is what this episode is truly all about, the birth of Bob, allowing him into our world. After reading The Secret History of Twin Peaks, it's interesting to note that there are references in that book that predate this event, where it seems like it's trying to give you some hints as to Bob actually already being on Earth. There's a character called Denver Bob. I think it takes place in 1875. So it's interesting that these dates don't really line up. Maybe Frost and Lynch aren't on the same page with this aspect. Or maybe this isn't really the birth of Bob. Maybe it's just him being present for such an evil act as the dropping of the atomic bomb. Who knows? Is this white humanoid creature the same creature that we saw in the glass box that killed Sam and Tracy? Possibly. It looks a little different to me, but it's possible that it's supposed to be the same creature. You'll also notice, interestingly enough, that its arms seem to be bent back. We've had several references from Laura of arms being bent back. Is she connected to that? Who knows? But just an interesting observation. Now we travel through some more space-time distance to another interdimensional area. We're at the Purple Ocean, which we remember from Episode 3. Agent Cooper found himself on that structure overlooking that vast purple ocean. Now we find ourselves flying across the ocean. There's this huge, beautiful, modernistic castle here. We zoom into one of the windows, and then we see another black and white scene. We see a lady who looks like she could be a silent film actress, very beautiful. She's sitting on a couch. This room is very reminiscent of the room from the very first scene of this new series, or this new season, where Agent Cooper was speaking with the giant. And she's listening to a phonograph, playing some music. She's swaying ever so softly. There is a metal diving bell, electric conductor thing, much like the one we saw Agent Cooper and Nido turn the switch off on in Episode 3. It begins to clang with this very annoying alarm sound. It goes on for a really long time, grating your nerves. And the giant walks out from behind it wearing a smoking jacket. He aimlessly stares at the audience for a few awkward minutes. He has a very awkward, distressed look on his face. He finally cuts the alarm off and then slowly makes his way up the stairs to a different room. It's a theater, which is the theater from Mulholland Drive used in Club Silencio. Interesting little Easter egg there. He makes his way over to a theater screen and basically watches what we've already seen in the episode so far: the birthing of Bob, the atomic bomb drop, the charcoal men milling about the convenience store. He looks very worried, and he begins to float up to the ceiling and emit this golden light from his face. It comes out and almost looks like it's going to form the shape of a tree, but then it looks like some sort of hieroglyph, perhaps some sort of painting we've seen somewhere in the Owl Cave, something similar to that. His lady friend, Senorita Dido, I believe is her name in the credits, makes her way into the room. She's hit with a spotlight. She has a very optimistic, happy look on her face as the giant creates an orb that possesses the face of Laura Palmer. As she holds it, gives it a kiss, and then sends it up through this tube where it makes its way to Earth and becomes part of the film screen. So what can we take from this scene? Well, we get the idea that these are interdimensional beings. They seem to be benevolent. We know the giant has helped Agent Cooper many times in the past. It's interesting to note that this scene here is in black and white, and when Agent Cooper was in this same area with the Purple Ocean earlier, he was in color. But when he was with the giant earlier, he was also in black and white. Is that just to mean that this was in the past? Is this the same area he was in episode 3? I'm not exactly sure. But moving on, we do know these guys are helpful creatures. They either created the spirit of Laura Palmer, but what does all this really mean? Is she our Messiah? Has she been sent to Earth, reincarnated over and over again to stop Bob and balance out our world, the evil-good balance? Who knows? I find it kind of strange that a manipulative drug addict is our Messiah, but hey, nobody's perfect, right? But what do you guys think this scene really meant? Is this just showing that Laura has been reincarnated? I'm pretty sure that she's going to come back to life on the show in some way, but does it have a deeper meaning than that? Is she some sort of savior to the human race? Next, we jump ahead to 1956. We're still in black and white, and we see a egg hatching in the middle of the desert, one of the same eggs that the humanoid white creature, the experiment model, as she's listed in the credits, was vomiting out. The egg hatches, and this ugly-ass frog, bug, cricket thing starts creepily crawling across the desert. We see the woodsman descend upon the desert. They float down out of the air, and they start creepily walking across the desert almost in a zombie-like fashion. We then join a young boy and girl as they're on their first date. It seems like they're just now leaving a dance of some kind or some kind of party or whatever. They're walking down the street. She finds a penny on the ground, heads up, and says it's going to be good luck. One of several coins that have been featured in this show so far, which is kind of interesting. The two walk down the road. The boy's walking her home. They discuss him breaking up with a girl named Mary. She's happy about that. I've heard a lot of speculation online that this is Leland and Sarah Palmer. I'm not so sure I buy that. I'm not really sure that these characters' names are going to be important. They're only listed as boy and girl in the credits. I could be very wrong, and this could be two important characters of the story. Perhaps the girl is Robertson, which we'll find out later. She's sort of possessed by this bug creature. But perhaps this is her last name is Robertson, and she's the family that moved in beside Leland at Pearl Lakes. Who knows? But anyway, we see the main woodsman, who looks like Abraham Lincoln. A couple is accosted by them on the road. A very creepy scene as they approach this couple's car, and the guy's saying, "Got a light, got a light." You can tell his voice is not natural. It sounds like it has electricity running through it. One thought, are these charcoal creatures Are they humans that were affected by the blast in some way, the atomic blast, or are they creatures from another dimension? Let me know what you think about that. After they scare the crap out of this old lady and man on the road and they spin off, one of the charcoal guys jumps in front of the car, hissing almost like a snake. Very scary. We see the Abraham Lincoln Got a Light guy make his way. He's titled as Woodsman in the credits, by the way. The Woodsman makes his way to a local radio station where he goes inside and murders the receptionist by crushing her skull in a very brutal fashion. Then he goes into where the DJ's at, grabs him by the skull, takes the mic, cuts it on, and then broadcasts out to the listening area this incantation, this chant. Twin Peaks has had a lot of chants, like magical chants in it, and magic really does exist in this world. And in this particular case, he uses this chant to put the entire town, well, we're guessing the entire town, to sleep, while these bug-like slime frog creatures can crawl into people's mouths and possess their bodies, we're assuming. The incantation goes, "This is the water, this is the well, drink full and descend. The horse is the white of the eyes, dark within." And he says that over and over again until the entire town falls asleep and passes out. We see the young lady, she lays down on her bed as the credits end with the frog creature coming into her window and crawling into her mouth very slowly and disgustingly. So what does this all mean? Is this bug creature representative of Bob? Are there tons of spirits like Bob in the form of those eggs, or is he something different? We noticed that he actually looked different in that gelatinous bulb. Are these insect creatures different from Bob? I don't know. Are these characters going to be important going forward? I wouldn't be surprised if the next episode we pick right back up with these two characters and see a little bit more of this story and how it maybe affected the town. And I wouldn't also be surprised if we never see this again and the story continues on after the break next week, and we're right back to business as usual in Twin Peaks and Las Vegas and whatnot, and this stuff is never touched on again. It wouldn't surprise me. But I absolutely love this episode. I think if you're a David Lynch fan and a Twin Peaks fan, you love this episode. We've got 10 more episodes, so it's not hurting anything that we took a break from the regular storylines for a while and got a little bit of backstory, as weird as it may be. It was very surrealistic, but also at the same time, I felt like the emotions and the motives here were very clear. What David Lynch was trying to say in his own artistic and beautiful way. This was the most terrifyingly beautiful hour of television I've ever seen, and I really applaud Showtime and David Lynch and Mark Frost for taking this leap and trying something so amazing. And I hope it gets all the credit it deserves. What did you guys think about this episode? There's a break next week, so I'm going to try to put together a video about the story so far for the new Twin Peaks. And thank you so much for watching. Give me your thoughts on any of the theories or impressions I had below, and I will see you guys next week on Weekend Go. If you're a lover of popular TV, video games, movies, books, toys, comics, you're in the right place. This is Weekend Go. I am Ryan Camp, and I sure do appreciate you watching. Please give me a like, and please subscribe and click the bell notification so you don't miss anything, and I will see you guys very soon.